Hello everyone and welcome to your partner in education, Agile Rank Mate. Today in this particular episode of ANTHE, we'll be looking at some sample questions of the Aakash National Talent Hunt examination. We'll be looking at sample questions from the subject of biology, crafted for grade 9 students. So let's start off with our first question. Active transport occurs along the concentration gradient and does not require ATP, against the concentration gradient and does not require ATP, along the concentration gradient and requires ATP, against the concentration gradient and requires ATP. So, how do we solve this question? Option 1 says along the concentration gradient and does not require ATP. This statement is a feature for passive transport. Now, this includes processes such as diffusion and osmosis. So therefore, option 1 is definitely incorrect. Option 2 says against the concentration gradient and does not require ATP. This statement is a contradiction because if you are transporting something against the concentration gradient, it does require ATP because you're moving against the concentration gradient, so you would need energy. ATP is the energy currency of the cell. So while it stands for adenosine triphosphate, it's more commonly known as the energy currency of the cell. So you need energy to go against the concentration gradient, so option 2 is incorrect. Option 3 says along the concentration gradient and requires ATP. This is actually superfluous because if you are going along the concentration gradient, you do not require ATP. This is evidently shown by passive transport mechanisms such as diffusion and osmosis. The right option, therefore, is option 4, against the concentration gradient and requires ATP. The thing is, active transport requires energy. And in the cells, energy is expressed as ATP. And so therefore, when you need energy to transport something, it's usually against the flow or against the concentration gradient. So option 4, against the concentration gradient and requires ATP, is the right option. Now let's look at another question. Which of the following is not a function of connective tissue? Production of blood cells to bind and support body parts, to line body surfaces and cavities, storage of fats. Now let's look at each option. Option 4 says storage of fats. Fats are stored in adipose cells, which are found in loose areolar connective tissue. So therefore, storage of fats is indeed a function of connective tissue, which makes the statement wrong because we're asked to find something that is not a function of connective tissue. 1 says production of blood cells. This is done by bone marrow, which is part of the bones, which means it's also a function of connective tissue because bones are connective tissue. Option 2 says to bind and support body parts. In order to do that, you would need to bind muscle to bone or bone to bone, which basically are done by tendons and ligaments. Now, of course, those are connective tissues as well. So therefore, option 2 is also incorrect. That means the only correct option is option 3, to line body surfaces and cavities. Of course, if you would have known that lining of body surfaces is the function of epithelial tissue, then you would have immediately jumped to option 3. Epithelial tissue's only function is to line body surfaces and cavities. Connective tissue has many functions, and it can might be manifested in many forms, such as bones, tendons, ligaments, blood, lymph, etc. So option 3 turns out to be the right option. Let's look at the next question. Which of the following is not an advantage of using fertilizers for replenishment of soil nutrients? Option 1 says it causes water pollution due to surface runoff. Of course, the statement is true. Option 2, they are compact and nutrient specific. However, if you look at the statement, this reads as an advantage. So therefore, the statement is not correct for the question, because we're looking at things that are not an advantage of fusing fertilizers. Statement 3, option 3 says they changed the soil chemistry by changing the pH of the soil, which is of course something that does happen, so that statement aligns to the question, so it's not an advantage. Option 4 says both 1 and 3, and as you can see that since both statements are correct, we have to go with option 4. That makes the other options incorrect. Now, in case you're wondering if these two statements are correct, then why are options 1 and 3 incorrect? It is because if you were to choose 1 or 3, then you would be disproving the other. So if you said 1 was the right answer, then the rest of the options are incorrect. So that means you would consider 3 to be incorrect, while in fact it is not. So since 1 and 3 are both not advantages of using fertilizers, we have to choose option 4, which in fact acknowledges that duality. So both 1 and 3 is the answer. Next question. Which of the following is a cartilaginous fish? Of course, cartilaginous means its skeleton is made out of cartilage. We have 4 options: Mystus, Exocetus, Hippocampus, Scoliodon. And in case you're wondering what are the types of cartilaginous fish, so fishes usually are bony or cartilaginous, and the cartilaginous fishes are less in number. These are sharks, skates, or rays, and rays. So these 3 groups of fish are considered cartilaginous because their skeleton is made out of cartilage. Of course, over here we're given scientific names, so let's look at each of the options. Option 1, Mystus, refers to a type of catfish. Fortunately, catfish are bony fish, so option 1 is incorrect. Option 2, Exocetus, refers to flying fish. So therefore, that option is also incorrect. Option 3, Hippocampus, refers to seahorses, which means that option 3 is also incorrect. That means option 4, Scoliodon, is the correct option to this question. In case you're wondering what Scoliodon means, it is basically referring to sharks. So therefore, option 4, Scoliodon, is the right option. Now, if you're wondering why these options are italicized, then that's because these are scientific names, so therefore they must be italicized. Now let's look at the final question for today. Which of the following is a mismatch? Which means that when we look at the options, we need to find an option where the 2 points are not matching with each other. Leprosy, bacterial infection; AIDS, bacterial infection; malaria, protozoan infection; elephantiasis, nematode infection. Now let's look at each of the options. Elephantiasis is caused by Wuchereria bancrofti, which comes under phylum Askelminths. Now, Askelminths are also known as nematodes, so therefore elephantiasis is in fact a nematode infection. Now, since this match, then the option is incorrect. Option 3, malaria, protozoan infection. Malaria is caused by Plasmodium, which of course is a protozoa. So option 3 matches, which makes the option incorrect. Option 1, leprosy. What is the causative agent of leprosy? It is Mycobacterium leprae. So that of course proves that leprosy is a bacterial infection. So since the 2 parts match, then that option also turns out to be incorrect. The right option is option 2, AIDS, bacterial infection. That is the wrong match. It is a mismatch because AIDS is caused by the human immunodeficiency virus. So therefore, option 2 is the right option. Now that concludes this particular episode of ANTHE. We hope you found this episode interesting and informative. For more of our useful and interesting content, don't forget to subscribe to Agile Rankmate, your partner in education. If you want to learn about ANTHE or any of our other examinations series, then please don't forget to hit the bell icon present below the video. So until the next webisode, take care, stay alert, bye-bye for now.